listening to The Starting Zone, a podcast about World of Warcraft and the people who play it. And now, here are your hosts.
Well, hello and welcome to The Starting Zone, the podcast about World of Warcraft, the people who play it. Today is still March 30th, 2025, and my name is Spencer Downey. Thank you so much for listening and subscribing to the podcast. I'm joined today, as always, by my co-host, Jason Lucas. For those who did not quite remember what happened last week, we said we were recording 2 episodes on the same day because I am currently in Vegas, is the best way to put that. I am not physically, on the day this episode released, able to record an episode. So it's something we're recording in advance. It is March 30th, like we said, but we are talking about what is happening for the week of April 8th is what it's going to be, right? That's the week that we're moving into. And so that's what we're going to be chatting about today. Jason, how are you doing on this fine Sunday?
Spencer, hello. It's wonderful to be here with you via the magic of the internet.
Isn't it?
A week plus later than actually we are. So yeah, this is going to be a bit of a weird this is going to be like, man, if you started listening to TSZ back in like August of 2016, it's going to be like one of those episodes, sort of, right? Like we're going to talk about what we know is happening for reset week of April 8th in NA and whatever else around the world with reset. So that also excuse us because we got to shift our mindset to like not this coming week but 2 weeks from now. But
yes,
we have a bunch of stuff that we know is happening, so we're going to tell you what we know and what you need to get into. So
that's right. Yeah, the original show back in the day of the Legion days when we first, the last couple of weeks of before Legion, but in the Legion days when we started doing it, was like 30 to 45 minutes long. And it was nothing to do with what we did this previous week in World of Warcraft, nothing to do with like too much deep into blue posts outside of ones that immediately affected your play in the game. It was really a dive into what's happening right now in the game for you to actually be able to play and do things. So yes, this timing wise will be a lot more similar to that. Because of we can't talk about what we haven't done yet is what it comes down to. There's nothing to add here at the beginning that's going to like fill 20-25 minutes at the top of the show with us talking about our weeks in World of Warcraft because they haven't happened yet. So you get to think about it this way. If you're like, man, it's too bad this is a really short episode. I was looking forward to TSZ this week and really filling in 2 hours at the top of my workday or whatever it is. Think about how big the next episode that we record on the 13th of April will be. That will be a very heavy episode that will have plenty to talk about in. So keep that in mind as well for those folks out there who might be itching for a bit more TSC. Okay, with that, let's hop into what's going on this week in World of Warcraft. All right, this week is the Arena Skirmish bonus event, meaning the Sign of the Skirmisher buff is up, increasing honor gains from Arena Skirmishes by 50%. And there's a quest to win 10 of them, which rewards some conquest and honor. And so if you're someone who wants to do some Arena Skirmishes, you can hop in and take care of that this week. When it comes to the weeklies that we're going to be participating in, last week was the Titan Disc Fragments, which means this week is Delves Weekly with Bran. So you're going to be getting that extra experience and Algari Adventurers cash from leveling up your Bran along the way, as well as getting all sorts of other little rewards from participating in Delves with Bran, as well as the quest to complete. Is it 5 Delves that Bran has, and then there's the 3 quests?
It depends. The Delves, like the Bran event quest, sometimes it's do 2 Delves in a particular zone.
Oh,
sometimes
right, the Nerubian ones or whatever.
Yeah. So sometimes it's defeat certain types of enemies or like delve layouts or whatever. Sometimes it's just like some certain number of delves. So I don't know if there's like a set rotation on those. So I don't know exactly what it's going to be, but you'll see the blue exclamation point on Bran. Go do what he says. Also, like if you didn't do Titan Disc Fragments last week, this is a great time to double up, right? Because Bran will certainly have you do at least 2, if not 3 or more delves, which means that you get like 30 plus disc fragments from a delve. So you do 2 or 3, and if you do 3, you're definitely done. So yeah, I mean, pretty good one. I think like like delves are something that I'm sort of doing anyway on a regular basis. So I'm not kind of going out of my way at all this is just a bonus on top of what I'm already doing. Plus the nice thing is you can get a coffer key from turning in the weekly. So if it's like do 3, then you get your 4th key just from having done the 3 and turning in the weekly, right? So that has some nice synergy when you're going through on different tunes, doing delves and stuff. So yeah, just keep an eye out for this week. And there wasn't if you're trying to really like double and triple dip, the last time we had to choose one, there wasn't a delve thing, but that's where you can really line it up. If you get you wait until week 3 of the rotation, right? You have the choose one to do a delve. You have disc fragments, then you have brands weekly, then you do 3 delves and you get 3 pinnacle caches. Not the case this time around, but just check in with brand, get your delves in, get your caches. This reset coming up is it's another full spark.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure you're caught up on caches. So we talked about it on last episode, but I feel like in season 1, I was very precious with my crafting. It was like, okay, I'm only spending exactly 180 gildeds because that's 2 pieces, and then I'll get my embellishments and I'm done. This time, because they cost 60 gildeds and crests are much more flexible, it's like, well, I have a spark. What do I have that's not at 675?
Yep.
So can I fill in an offset piece with maybe I'll make a pair of boots or whatever? I think that's where we're at. So keep that stuff in mind. It's probably what I'll be doing with this week's spark, depending on what I've been able to fill in. All right, what do I have below that threshold? Let's just craft something up, because why not? The crests are going to be there. Just got to make sure that if you want to be at that level where you're caught up with your spark fragments, you got to do these weeklies. So you got to pick up your delves weekly and get your pinnacle cache.
Yeah, you definitely do. That is super helpful, as well as this week that we're heading into will be the next increase to percentage of damage done and healing done for your raid. So this will be the other time where everyone's actually getting that buff. So it'll be a big week for people to essentially advance against the bosses that might be stuck on inside raid. And that might mean that you want to queue up for your LFR or something to get that reputation early, get in there early, kill some bosses early before your raid day with your team, so that you're able to get that buff for those first few early bosses. And if you're someone who's like, yeah, I really want to parse well and have really big numbers or whatnot, you can beat out all your friends if you happen to get the 3% buff, right? Why not get it before your friends?
And with this new add-on, this Archon add-on thing, the parse gating and all that, oh boy, that's the whole thing that I'm sure we'll be getting into in coming weeks as this starts to wreak havoc upon the community. So yeah, parse high, get your buffs, get all your stuff. You're gonna if you're pugging, you're gonna need to, apparently. So
yeah, it's gonna be a thing.
Good luck out
there. Good luck out there is true. So yes, the other thing, along with speaking about the Incontinental Hotel, you want to be sure you're doing your Urge to Surge and your many jobs handle it and your reduce, reuse, resell, at least on one character every week, as well as the other quests that pop up down there for you to do for going to different areas of Azeroth and actually helping out by doing some Undermine stuff there. So be sure you're getting that stuff done every week as well. We don't know what the PvP quest is going to be, but the brawl is going to be Deep 6, which means that this pits teams of 6 players against each other in 3 iconic battlegrounds of Warsong Gulch, Silvershard Mines, and Temple of Khat-Mogu. So each battleground offers a little variation in its traditional format, such as flags being a bit closer in Warsong Gulch, less carts to keep track of in Silvershard Mines, and only 2 orbs within the Temple of Khat-Mogu. And by winning one of these, you get yourself some Marks of Honor, Conquest and Honor. I will say the 2 orbs in Temple of Khat-Mogu is actually a more enjoyable gameplay than the 4 orbs. So I actually enjoy Deep 6 quite a bit, especially when it's only 6 players, because they also reduce the resurrection timers for these battlegrounds, which means that you're essentially able to get back a lot faster. So if you die, it's only 5 seconds before you're back up and back in the fight, which feels really good. So I enjoy Deep 6 as a brawl. It's certainly something that's worth folks checking out if they want to.
I think two of the 3 are really good. I don't like the 6-on-6 Warsong Gulch.
Yeah, it's weird.
I think Silvershard is actually way better, and there's a couple we have a couple of different variations of Khat-Mogu in the brawl pool. And I like this one, but I like Khat-Mogu the best. I think Warsong Gulch just is weird 6-on-6, so
Yeah.
that's always the one that like I don't do brawls a lot, but like when I do queue into a deep 6 Warsong, I'm like, all right, here we go. Like
Yeah.
this is not. I kind of lost the dice roll on this one. I kind of wish it was just Silver Shard and Katmagu, but I guess that's just not enough variety. So, but yeah, it's last week we had Packed House, which was way too many players in an arena. This week is Deep 6, which is not quite enough players in a battleground.
Yeah. The Godfather, the big world boss, current world boss, is up inside Undermine every week for you to kill, to try and get yourself some 642 Warbound loot off the first kill, which can be a plate chest and feet, mail legs and feet, leather chest and waist, cloth legs and feet, or a crit verse neck, which is another way to get necks that are very challenging to get in this current season. So keep that in mind. By this point, we'll also know the results to the Mythic Plus vote, which I wish we could report on right now, but it's happening and finishing in the future, so won't be able to report it on this week. But when we get back, I'm sure we'll talk all about which dungeons have been selected for Season 3 and what's going to be in the pool for Mythic Plus. But what we can tell you this week is that Ascendant is going to be the Mythic Plus affix for the week, which means that 10 orbs appear every minute while in combat that must be interrupted, purged, knocked, or crowd controlled. If an orb goes off, enemies will get a buff that increases their movement speed and haste. If the orbs are interrupted by players, you get a stacking buff worth 2% movement speed and haste per stack. So you can get yourself 20% movement speed and haste through destroying all of these orbs. This is where your monks come in with their circles that they can drop to be able to actually disrupt all these orbs. You got your druids with their typhoons that can knock them all back. You got priests mass dispelling them to sort of purge them all off. They can be, crowd controlled or knocked back. The AoE stuns from warlocks are great for this sort of thing, just to take care of all these orbs as quickly as possible. They will stagger spawn in, which means that they aren't all just appearing at the same time. So sometimes it's worth holding your cast for 2 or 3 seconds before you actually do it to try and get as many of these orbs as possible if you're doing a big AoE one. I have found myself just throwing an interrupt on an orb that's just way out there on its own. So if basically, a Ring of Peace goes down and destroys most of these, and there's one orb sitting on its own, just throw an interrupt on it, and that'll get rid of that last one. So definitely take care of these as fast as possible. This is a very easy affix to manage for your group. It's really rare that these things will pop in and you won't be able to get all of them. So it's a pretty consistent one for a lot of groups. So definitely keep that in mind with Ascendant. It's also going to be a fortified week, and this will be the first fortified week we see with the hopefully fixed 20% as opposed to 30% increased damage at the level 7 keys. Obviously, you'll deal with both fortified and tyrannical last week with doing 10s and above. But when it comes to the lower level keys, this was hopefully the first fixed week for fortified for folks to feel what 7s were supposed to feel like and 8s were supposed to feel like, as opposed to having that 10% extra damage on fortified that was floating around there for people. But yeah, overall, I think this is a great week for folks to check out Mythic Plus.
Yeah. I think so too. Ascendant, like you just have so many options to play around it, which is the great thing about it. It is noisy, it's a ton of new plates in the field. Sometimes it can spawn in kind of an inconvenient location, which you have to react to. But yeah, I mean, like you've mentioned, it is susceptible to like AoE stuff, which is great. My kind of problem with it, just from the way that I play and my style and my role, is that like I have, I talent into Shockwave and Stormbolt, and I have the hero talent that makes Stormbolt split and hit additional targets, and I talent into an AoE Fear, and I have a stun on Shield Charge, and I have my regular interrupt and all that. I don't really want to use that stuff on affix orbs. I want to use it on mobs that are trying to kill me. So, it doesn't always work out that like, oh, it's a good time to, shockwave these mobs, and it also is going to hit Ascendant orbs. Like, but, luckily, like my buddy that I do the most keys with is healer wise is playing Mistweaver. So Ring of Peace is a great option for this, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
And I feel like if I try to just wait, what I try to do is kind of wait it out. And I know I have a couple big emergency buttons. My Fear is kind of my go-to because it's like that's not really super safe to use all the time. So if I just use Fear on Ascendant orbs, then that's a pretty good trade-off. because I really want to save those shockwaves and stuff for where I'm getting big value out of the mobs we're fighting. But so that's like my thing, my little kind of quirk about it, that I don't love ascending, because I end up being very conservative with my stuns, which honestly kind of makes the dungeons a little bit harder. I should probably just not worry about it as much, just worry about the stuff I'm fighting and control it and win, and then the ascendant is just kind of a bonus on top.
Right.
But like I said, most of the time, Ring of Peace clears it up for the group that I tend to run with. So it still affects my approach. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Overall, though, I mean, if you're still kind of working your way up the system, this is a great week to start getting into that level 7 and above echelon and start working your way up to 10s. You know, keys are a little bit weird now, because it's like a lot of us have gotten into that 10 range pretty early. And so there really is no distinction between a fort and tyrannical key. Every dungeon has both, right? Like that's kind of where I've already been there for a couple of weeks, and that's way faster for me than season 1. So it's kind of hard to even consider that distinction in a lot of ways, because you think about it, like 2 through 6, there's nothing. So it's only 7, 8, and 9 that even have one or the other, and then 10 and above have both, right? So it's just that one little window. It's that last hurdle to get over, where then you're living in 10s and above. But you know, I think that's an important part of the learning process, just to, you know, be able to play your spec, play your class, you know, understand how the dungeons function, understand what the sticky kind of, you know, trash pulls might be, or what the really important boss mechanics might be. You know, you do have that kind of speed bump above 7, but should be pretty gentle this week if you're somebody who is, you know, I mean, I know a few people who really didn't play season 1 dungeons much, or they kind of dropped off because the curve was brutal, and now they're trying to get more into it in season 2, and they're not quite at that point yet where it's like, well, I just live in 10s or whatever. So this is this week is going to be, I think, really good for getting over that hump, start finding, you know, plus also we're now, you know, like a month plus into the season, so we have a lot more knowledge. Stuff is tuned better. It all leads to, like you mentioned, the fortified bug fix and all that. That's going to make this a smoother process to get in there, really start figuring stuff out, get that 2K knocked out, get your catalyst charge, all that stuff. Going to be great for that.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be a great Mythic Plus week when people dig into Keystones for that week. Outside of that, I mean, you just want to be sure that you're doing, you know, your theater troop, and you're awakening the machine, and you're spreading the light, and get all those keys in for those bountifuls that you need to do. I've been checking off achievements from my list lately when it comes down to achievement stuff that's still going on out there, and getting those campsites unlocked that Jason's been talking about is a nice thing that's high up on my list. There's one where I'm really close to getting the mount off of the island that came in with the last patch, where you could get the ring for Circe's Circlet. Mm-hmm. That island, apparently I'm missing like 3 rares, and then I get a mount. I just need to kill 3 specific rares, so I've been spending some time out there. Definitely have a look at your achievement log just to see if there's anything you're really close to finishing off. I don't know if any professions are completable. Obviously, I want to talk a bit about that when we get back, as to whether or not some of the knowledge points would have pushed more professions into that completed range, because it's exciting for folks when we're getting to that point where, for the rest of the expansion, you're going to be done with earning knowledge points. That's certainly nice. And Jason, you'll be happy to hear with any of these capped ones, you don't get a pop-up notifying you have unspent points. That has remained from Dragonflight. Oh man,
that was so fun in Dragonflight. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of a quirk of the profession system as well. It's like different professions have different, you know, upper thresholds of how much knowledge you need to complete them. So it's not like, oh, well, you know, mining's been done now as an example, but other professions are not really imminently close yet. So that's just going to be sort of this process here in the middle of season 2 of wrapping stuff up. And then, but man, it's so nice to be able to just, that's been a huge part of sort of the just like rocket ship gearing curve in, that's another part of it in season 2. Like we talked about the crest economy and how it's like, oh, you don't have to be as precious with your crests. Also, like we have much more knowledge, you know, outside of season 1, I was still learning how to put, you know, points into my profession and make stuff. And now it's like, well, I can make any piece of armor that I want. You know, my tailor friend can make a cloak. My jewel crafter friend can make jewelry. My buddy who went weaponsmithing instead of armor smithing can make any weapon, and you can get all that stuff maxed out. Whereas that was another thing kind of holding us back in season 1, is that we hadn't put the time into the professions yet. Now we just benefit from them from now until the next expansion,
which is really nice as far as all that goes. So yeah, keep that in mind. And then last but not least, Darkmoon Faire is up and live and running. It's going to run until the 12th of April. So be sure that you're taking advantage of that. That is the day that I am returning back from Vegas. So I will be flying in at like, I'll get it. I think I get in at 6:30 in the morning, and then I have to take a train, and then I have to get a lift, and then I'll be home. So I'll be resting, but I might have to like hop on and make sure I knock out some Darkmoon Faire stuff before it all goes away on that Saturday.
Gotta get those points, man. You got a couple hours in there. You can slide in there and get those points.
Exactly. So I got to make sure that happens as well. And yeah, with that, I guess we'll take a moment to thank our patrons. They contribute a ton to our show and help us to improve on the content we create. I'm giving a special shout out today to Arajian, Bradley, Garrett, Kapawi, Cobra, Max, and Shorel. Thank you so much for all that you give to support the show. We appreciate you very much. You guys help keep the lights on, as well as all of our patrons with this show and helping us keep the recordings up and the archives live and all that kind of stuff. So thank you, patrons past and present, who've contributed to the show. We appreciate you much. If you'd like to jump in and support the show as well, you can do so at patreon.com/thestartingzone, where you can hop in there and contribute at the tier you want to contribute to. And that'll help us out on our end with keeping the show running and making sure that you get an episode every week.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, patrons, for everything you've contributed to the show over the many long years we've been in production on it, and then had the Patreon campaign rolling. So it really does make a huge difference. We couldn't do it without you. So thank you so much for contributing. And apologies for the lighter show this week. We're just in a spot where we sort of had to make a difficult choice, and we went with, let's get something out that at least covers what's going on in the game, give people kind of the roadmap for the week. We felt like that was the best of a couple kind of not ideal options. So thanks for bearing with us this week, and have fun out there in WoW. Obviously, we'll be back with a more traditional format next time, once we actually have some news and information and some experiences to share.
Yeah, I don't think you'd want me coming live from Vegas on one of the weird evenings after sitting through a conference and walking around a conference floor for the entire day on whatever Wi-Fi I can actually manage to get out of their hotel while I'm there. So yeah, I think ideally we do this now, and then we just have a larger show, like I mentioned, after I get back. The Sunday after I get back will be the 13th, and so that'll be hopefully just a show that picks up a lot of the blue posts and announcements that have taken place while I was away. But yeah, so with that, if you've enjoyed this episode, another great way to support the show is by leaving us a 5-star review. You can do that over on iTunes, your Apple Podcasts. Hop over there and leave a review there. And that's going to wrap up episode 678 of The Starting Zone. If you want to check out show notes for this episode or leave a comment on the show, you can head on over to thestartingzone.com, the official website for the Starting Zone podcast. If you want to contact the show and leave us your feedback or email us a question, you can do so at thestartingzone@gmail.com, or reach out to us on Twitter at The Starting Zone, or Blue Sky, thestartingzone.bluesky.net, or was it, I guess .net. And then the startingzone.com/Discord is the other way to find us. You can go to join our Discord server with lots of helpful folks over there. You just go to thestartingzone.com. There's a Discord button you can click on, or you can just go to thestartingzone.com/Discord, and it'll take you to where that button goes, and you can join our Discord server and hop in there. And Jason, where can folks find you on the internet?
You can find me over on Twitter or on Blue Sky. It's at Shieldwald over on Twitter. It's at jlucas.bsky.social on Blue Sky. Mostly post stuff to Blue Sky, but I keep up with both sites if you want to send me a message. You can also find video channels at twitch.tv/Shieldwald and youtube.com/Shieldwald. Streams are usually Tuesday, Wednesday, Sunday nights, 7:30 Eastern for Raid and Keys. Might squeeze in some other stuff depending on, we're at that part of the season where we're doing extra nights for extra keystones, and might be doing some retro game streams and stuff. So come check that out as well.
Yes, it's .social, as you just pointed out there, which was great. So it's the startingzone.bsky.social for those who are looking for the Starting Zone one over there. But yeah, be sure to follow Jason and all of the stuff that he does over there on his channels. If you're trying to find me, You can find me on Blue Sky at spencerhd.bsky.social, on Twitch at twitch.tv/SpencerHD, over on YouTube at youtube.com/@SpencerHD, or if you're still using that Twitter thing, I'm at Spencer_Downey. And with that, for Jason and myself, we want to say thanks for listening, and jobs done.